My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
And I'm Robert. In every episode, we're bringing you faith stories and fishing memories from some amazing members of the fishing community.
So join us as we shed a positive light on all things faith and fishing. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. As you can hear, we finally got our new intro recorded so that Robert could be on there. And wouldn't you know it, the first episode that we play it, Robert is not with us. Robert had some family things going on tonight that he had to be there for. So I am flying solo, but don't worry, we do have an awesome guest. But before we jump into that, I do have some housekeeping stuff. First, I wanted to remind everybody about Jackson Orr's Catch Tournament, his annual charity tournament. The top 6 get to choose their charity that they donate a portion of their winnings to. So even if you can't fish the tournament, it's $20. The link to that will be in the show notes. Go on Tourney X, search Jackson Orr, and it should be the first one to come up. So yeah, go ahead and get signed up for that. I'm hoping to be able to fish at least a day of the tournament. I think it's a 3-day tournament. So I'm hoping to see your name up there with me. Like I said last week, I hope to see your name below mine, but that may not be the case. But last week we announced that the Faith and Fishing Podcast is now on Amazon Music and Audible. And I said that you should now be able to say, Alexa, play the Faith and Fishing Podcast. And I tried it, and that did not work. I guess it feels weird saying she for a computer, but I guess she just does not qualify as a word. So maybe that's why she didn't recognize that one. But she tried to play every other fishing podcast she could find, but except for this one. But another cool announcement. Thank you to the Czech Republic. I don't know who you are, but I got at least one person listening there, and you're listening a lot. In just a few days, you jumped up from not being on the list at all to like being like 8 or 9 below the bottom of the most watched, most listened to countries. So thank you to whoever you are listening there. We've got 27 countries listening to the show, and that just blows me away. And the last thing I wanted to say was, ratings and reviews. I don't do a very good job of keeping up with those of you who say anything on iTunes, because I just I'm that anti-Apple. I just don't look at iTunes very often. But I did want to give shout outs. We got a few people who have left reviews on iTunes since the show started that I've never acknowledged or anything. So Kayak Bass and Chris, Josh 4417, SDCCJ7, Dan Flowen, Will Dole, Project Mindfully Outdoors, a string of guests there. Thank y'all for reviewing the show and waiting for the bins and our good buddy Paul Heels. So thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for reviewing. That really helps other people find the show. So definitely wanted to say thank you to all of y'all. And let's go ahead, have some words from our sponsors, and then we'll get our guest introduced and get him in here. Savior Outdoors gives me confidence that no matter what happens, what I take on the water is coming back home with me. With retrieval devices for fishing rods, bow fishing bows, action cams, and even one that can be attached to your other gear, they've got your whole arsenal covered. When one of these devices goes in a drink, it releases a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back, and the pressure-sensitive filter means that you don't have to worry about rain or dips in the water while landing a fish. at savouroutdoors.com. That's SAVUR outdoors.com. You can use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% and try them for yourself.
A huge selection and crazy fast shipping is already enough to turn heads as an online tackle shop, but Omnia Fishing sets themselves apart with their ambassador program. With Omnia, you can send in fishing reports for your local lakes that recommend baits, structure, tactics, and gear. And when another angler takes your advice and purchases something from your report, you get credit for it to spend at Omnia. The best part means that with Omnia Fishing, you can shop by lake and purchase baits and gear that are proven to work where you're fishing. To get started, go to omniafishing.com and use promo code FNF15 to save 15% on your first order.
All right, so this week on the podcast, if you're someone who likes to not look at the title of the episode and likes to be surprised about who the guest is, maybe a couple hints here. This is another podcaster, nod, nod, wink, wink. There is your hint, but I was looking at analytics and sorry, between the coughing and the muting for the coughing, this may be an interesting episode. I've got a cough drop in now, but it turns out it's one of the sore throat drops, so it's really making my mouth kind of numb. So we will see how this goes. But looking at my analytics, number 5 on the most watched episode ranking was the last time this gentleman was on the podcast. So let's just go ahead and get him in here. Andrew Hayes from the Tackle Talk podcast. Andrew, man, welcome back.
Hey, how's it going, man?
I am doing well. I hope you are.
Yeah. Sorry that you put in the wrong cough drop there and your mouth's going numb.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I'm not to the point of being comfortable getting a fill-in yet, but it feels like it's getting there.
Yeah. I've had those before too, where you think you're just getting like a regular cherry flavored cough drop or something. You get in the middle, and then all of a sudden your whole throat and your tongue and everything, you can't feel anything. So I know where you're at. But thanks for having me on again. It was fun the first time. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, man. So if anybody who did not listen to the last one, or has been living under a rock and is listening to fishing podcasts and somehow has not stumbled across the Tackle Talk podcast yet, give us a real quick rundown of who you are.
Yeah, so I'm just a regular old bass angler from Dayton, Ohio. So kind of like the western central side of Ohio, if you're not familiar with Ohio, but definitely not like anybody's destination to come bass fishing. But we make the most of it. I grew up creek fishing. I do a lot of river fishing, a lot of small lakes and things like that. There aren't really many big lakes around us. We're not anywhere near Lake Erie or any of that. So it's very much kind of inland southern Ohio fishing. But yeah, I've done that for as long as I can remember. I started really taking it seriously at this point, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, something like that, maybe. But just I love it. It's my escape from everything. It's my time to decompress and kind of get back to me. So like a stressful week at work with everything I've got going on. I work a job that sometimes during the year I'm working 80, 90 hours a week. And so that time on the water is like, it's my time. But then about 3 years ago, I think at this point, I put in a lot of time for work in the truck, and I listened to a lot of podcasts, and there really wasn't much in the way of fishing podcasts 3 years ago. It was like Ike and BTL were like the only two things that were out there. And Ike's show, I like Ike a lot. It's just more of like a bunch of friends sitting around drinking, hanging out, and talking loosely about fishing sometimes, and sometimes a little bit more about fishing. And then BTL was very tournament heavy. And so there wasn't anything out there for just like regular dudes like me that just wanted to sit there and learn for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and actually tune into something that had a purpose, not just flipping on a microphone and listen to someone blabber about their fishing trip for, the last 2 weeks or whatever it was, and just talk about the 2-pounder they call it last week. I wanted like things about tactics and tips and gear reviews and all this kind of stuff, and there wasn't anything out there. So I just kind of started my own in my spare bedroom, and it kind of took on a life of its own over the past couple of years. So it's been really cool since then.
Absolutely, that's awesome. So how has how has your year gone since you've been on the show? I don't remember exactly when it was. It's been a while, but yeah, how has your I guess how has this season gone for you?
Yeah. Fishing year this year has been interesting around here. It hasn't been as productive as the past couple years. We had some really weird stuff going on with our rivers and water levels and clarity and all kinds of stuff that just we hadn't really had to deal with the past couple years. So obviously we live in a really volatile area. We're in what they call the Miami Valley. So there's like 5 rivers that converge into this low point of Dayton. So it blows out all the time. Flooding is awful. We're talking like, especially in the spring, if it rains for a day, it can ruin our water systems around here for like 2 weeks. And so it's rough. But this year was interesting too. So I think what I would probably trace it back to is I think the lake that feeds into a lot of our river systems that converge down here had some issues up north, and that kind of trickled down to us. So it was definitely weird, but it's getting better now. It's back to normal clarity. Now we're at like historic lows in water level because we haven't had rain in forever. So luckily we're getting some of that tonight. But yeah, it's been good. We've been still pretty lucky with when we've gone out. I've broken a couple personal bests this year and had some good times out on the water. So it's been great. Other than that, personal life, I've got a kid on the way, so that one's going to be fun. That is coming in mid-January. So
Awesome.
ready
Awesome.
for next chapter there in life, I guess. We'll see how I do as a dad. That's extremely terrifying to me, but we'll make it work. We moved houses, so I've been renovating this house basically by myself for the past probably 5 months at this point, and so that's been a nice project too. But it's all good. What about you? How's everything been since last time we talked?
Man, since last time we talked, I don't know if I had a kid last time we had you on the podcast, but I do now. He is, um, gosh, next week he's 20 months old,
Holy
um,
moly! Yeah.
and he is his own individual person. He is defiant as all get out, very independent. Takes after takes after his mom and his independence and his ability to just figure everything out on his own. And then he gets from me how frustrated he gets whenever he can't figure something out on his own. um, but he goes he has these moments where he's just this defiant little kid who he's standing up on his high chair and you say sit bottom down and he raises his arms and goes, well, make me.
Yeah, right. What are you
Uh,
gonna do?
and then he's also the sweetest kid in the world.
Good.
So um, I know you're gonna do amazing. And you
If
are
he likes
going to
fishing, I will. It's not gonna have a choice.
um, you're gonna feel like you have no clue what's going on sometimes, and that
Yeah.
join the
It's
club.
gotta be one of those things you're just never really ready for. Like, if you sit there and wait to be ready, you're gonna be, like, 94 years old and be like, "I'm still not
Yeah,
obviously
you
ready." You just kinda have to do it
read
at some
all the
point.
books in the world, and you're still going to get caught off guard, like
Yeah. The thing that gives me a
before the
little bit of
baby's even.
solace is that people have had babies for, like, tens of thousands of years and with none of the amenities that we have now. So I think like you hear all this stuff, people are like, oh, you need this, you need that. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure they raised babies in like caves with nothing. So I think I'll be okay without the sock that tells me it's blood pressure every 30 seconds on my phone. Like I think I'll be all right. But it'll be fun.
We had a moment of panic one night and went and bought that, and that
like I can't
that
remember what it's
stock
called, but it was when my wife told me
stock
about it, I was
thing.
like, I know what'll happen. You know exactly what'll happen is it'll have one, and I
Um,
won't have a say in it, and it will. But I'll eat my words on this one. I'm sure at some point.
um, I mean, it did help for peace of mind for a little
Yeah,
bit, but um,
I told her, I said I'm just gonna put my trail cam up in the crib there, and we'll be good. It comes right to my phone. We don't have to buy any of this stuff. We already got it. I can redneck this whole thing together if you let me. We'll be
oh,
all right.
that's fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah, you don't need to buy a baby monitor. We got a spy point. We're okay.
Yeah, so it's funny. We got our baby monitor is from the brand Eufy,
Okay.
and whenever we did that, I think we ended up with a discount for getting the camera set up for the security system at the house. So it's like,
There
okay,
you go.
that worked.
Yeah. Like, hey, ADT, can you put an extra one in this room, please?
But yeah, for sure, you're gonna be fantastic.
Thanks. I
And
hope so.
you're not gonna feel like you are, but you will be.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. We'll be all right. We'll get through it.
Um, yeah, I shared on the podcast not that long ago. I took Henry out fishing for the first time.
How was that?
Um, uh, we're not there yet. I think he
Yeah.
needs to get a little bit better at listening before we try again. But definitely a memory I will cherish forever. This kid
Yeah.
running up to like 12 geese that are just sitting there like trying to have an afternoon nap, and he
Yeah.
runs up to the closest one and gets like 3 feet
Bold
away
move.
from it. Gets 3 feet away from it, stands there and honks at it. Honk, 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 honk.
Like, Henry, you're going to learn that you're going to avoid those things like the plague at some point. You
Oh
are going
yes,
to hate geese. Right
yes.
now, they might seem cool when you're, 19 years old and you're fishing around some pond or something. You take one wrong step and you go into a goose nest, and then it starts pecking at your feet real hard. You're not going to like them anymore.
Absolutely, man. Um, so yeah, let's kind of dive into
Yeah.
um, to kind of one of the topics that I said we were going to cover, and that was positivity in the fishing world. So we've had a lot of negative press lately, and Robert and I just kind of latched onto this idea of positivity in the sport, spreading positivity, and um, yeah. So I will say. uh, I was challenged by you last time that I had you on, and in terms of talking to people,
Yeah.
talking to other anglers while I'm out on the water, because I was 100% the guy that was grumbling
Yep.
that it's like if I paddled with everything I had all day long, I would never get to where that person is. But I'm upset that they're there on the same body of water that I am. I was that guy.
Hmm. Yep. And I still am that guy sometimes too. It's something I'm always constantly working on, but yeah, you hit the nail on the head where I try, and luckily I have some friends that are almost forced me to do this. My buddy Ryan that I fish with a lot of times is definitely this guy that will talk to anybody, that will start the conversation, that will go up to these people. So that helps a lot too. He's kind of opened my eyes to how important that part of it is, because you're right. If you just sit there and you never talk to anybody else you see out there and you let yourself just be grumpy, then you start it's unnecessary, because that person is out there doing the exact same thing you are. You probably would be best friends if you would just go talk to this person, but instead you're grumpy because you think they're hurting your chances at having a good day fishing. And I'm still guilty of it to this day, but I have met some of the best people that I've ever met in my life being out on on the lake or on the creek or the river or something, and you just stop and talk to them because you already know you have one big shared common interest. And a lot of times you'll find out that it'll humble you a little bit, where you're like, why is that person in my spot? It's like, no, actually that dude's been fishing there for 24 years and knows exactly what he's doing. And you're in his spot. So it's fun to learn and meet those people. Like when you were going through your new intro there, I noticed a couple people that I know. You have some Ohio boys on there that fish some of the same water that I fish. You had Whitty on here, so Whitty's a good example of that. You'll see Whitty busting out in the jet boat around town around here, and it would be really easy to be like, that guy, right? Like, if I only had that boat, or why is he here? But he is the nicest dude on the planet. He makes sweet crankbaits too. He's a really good guy. So yeah, just open your horizons a little bit and don't start off grumpy. Go up and talk to some of these people, and you'll
Yeah,
find out that they'll
absolutely.
become your fishing buddies.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of took it a step farther after Paul challenged me on the Bass and Brews podcast about becoming chaplain for our local trail series.
Oh,
And
cool.
so now I was like, if it hadn't have been for Andrew, like I wouldn't have had any practice going up and talking to people at the boat ramp. But now, because you challenged me to do that, I was like, like
It's cool.
like I'm doing it all the time. Like
Yeah.
I'm going up and I'm starting the conversation with everybody I see, especially if it's a young person out fishing. Uh, I've always, I worked youth ministry for a while. I've got a heart for youth, and anytime I get a chance to or like a family or something like that, that's like, oh, I
Yep.
definitely got to go talk to them. Um, but yeah, just being that person who goes up and talks, and it's the it's funny. I have run into I was in his spot, not
Right.
I, the
Little humble pie there for sure.
yeah
Yeah.
guy. One time, a buddy and I were out fishing at a mill pond, and we come back, and the spot that we were supposed to take out at, there was a guy there with a fly rod, and he was using his fly rod to flip crickets out. And I was like, man, this guy, like, I don't know if he just doesn't know what he's doing, or if he's just doing what he can with what he's got, or what, but it's it looks ridiculous. Like, there's no way this guy is anything. And I'm sitting here saying this after getting skunked. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm sitting on this kayak with all of this gear, and I got skunked. And this guy looks at my kayak, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Y'all have any luck out there today?" I was like, "Well, my buddy did, but I didn't." And he said, "Look in there," and he shows us his bucket, and it's like he's got all of these bluegill and crappie. And I was like, "Man, he's eating good tonight."
Yeah. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. Those are the ones that crack you up too. You're right. It's the guy that is in the 24-year-old John boat that looks like, doesn't have two nickels to rub together and is out there just waxing you. And
Yeah,
he knows what he's doing. He's been fishing this body of water for decades, probably longer than sometimes we've been alive. And just again, it's the positivity thing, right? Don't judge people when
yeah,
when you see them, not just to not be a bad person, right? But also because you're gonna get served some of that humble pie at some point where they're like, you think they don't know what they're doing. They look at you and they think you're crazy because you have a $1,500 kayak and you have $200 combos and whatever, and they're laughing at you more than you're laughing at them.
oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's the same whenever I go fishing with my dad too, because the last time I went fishing with my dad, I carried 3 combos with me. We were bank fishing. I carried 3 combos with me, and I was fishing all of these different lures and stuff, and I caught a bunch of fish, but he beat me in quantity, most species, and the biggest fish, and he was throwing a white 3-inch grub on a Zebco 33 all day and didn't put it down.
Yep. Isn't it funny how that works? Yeah. Someone with like a cream worm or something is just busting you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So with your podcast, you've been doing uh, more guests lately than you normally do, which has been really awesome. You had a couple series this year that were absolutely phenomenal. One where you got to have some scientists on, biologists on, to talk about breaking down the different species of bait that bass eat, which has to be the best 4-episode series of a podcast I've ever heard in my entire life. Like,
Thank you.
I mean, anytime you get to hear, biologists and like these complete like animal nerds get to just geek out on what it is they study.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And then you had another one on that was awesome, about different bait makers in different categories. So, what have been some of the highlights for you in this past year of podcasting, and people that you've gotten to talk to, and episodes that you've gotten to record?
Yeah. I think there's like two different tiers to that, because there's the one side, which I love competitive bass fishing. I love the bass fishing industry in general. And so like 2 weeks ago, we had Jacob Wheeler on, and Jacob is pretty much on top of the world right now when it comes to competitive bass fishing, at least in his format. And so he's literally like if you want to look at Major League Fishing over the past 4 years, he's the Michael Jordan or the LeBron or whatever. He's the guy that's out there to be beat. So those are really cool. Those are interesting because I like those more of just, I like to have a unique conversation with people. And so I don't want to ask the same questions that everybody else has asked them 1,000 times. And so I usually try and break those type of conversations up into the info that I want to know about them as an angler, what makes them tick, or these questions I've always had in the back of my head. And then I'll switch about halfway through and we'll go into like nothing but tactics and techniques. And I think that's cool because a lot of folks don't do that. They just ask them about the last 3 tournaments or whatever it may be. And you don't get, like, I like the idea of going out fishing tomorrow with a buzz bait and doing something and catching fish. And then when someone says, "Oh, where'd you learn that?" I learned that from Jacob Wheeler. Like, I like that. I like the ability to go out. I throw a popper a little differently now sometimes because we had Rick Clunn on, and when Rick Clunn tells you to throw a popper a certain way, you throw a popper a certain way. And so it's fun to learn techniques where when you're out there catching fish, this wasn't from some dude down the street. It wasn't from, your buddy. It was from one of the best bass anglers on the planet. So I love those episodes. But then I think I have a equally soft spot for the episodes that you talked about, which are they're slowly taking more of a form of like multi-part series, because there's more than one person I want to talk to for a topic. And so I haven't figured out how to weave those into one episode. So I like stretching them out over 4. So we've done 2. You got both of them. So one of them was the bait breakdown. That might be my favorite thing that we've ever done, aside from the Bill Dance episode, because I'm just a sucker. And that was my childhood. And so I was a kid in a candy store on that one. But just on like the pure learning about fishing side and becoming a better angler, I think the bait breakdown was maybe my favorite thing that I've got the chance to do, because I sat there and I thought, I was like, you can go on YouTube and there are billions of videos about why bass do what they do, or why bass hit certain colors and certain times a year, or why these 5 baits are the best for this month. But there's like nothing out there about the actual science of the forage that we spent. That's what you're doing when you're going out there and you're fishing on a boat for 8 hours. You're not imitating a bass, you're imitating a crawdad, or you're imitating a shad. And so why don't we spend an equal amount of time learning about what those types of things do, what makes them tick, how to be more natural? And so then the hardest part is not, I would say it's not getting these people to agree to do the episode. It's just finding the right people, because when you sit down and you're like, all right, who is the best guy to talk to about crawdads, but not for fishing, but kind of for fishing, but for the biology of crawdads, that's not going to think I'm crazy when I ask him to talk about it from an angler's perspective. And so I went out, I looked for like 2 to 3 weeks for the right person. You can find all of these crawdad experts, but nobody that's going to come at it from an angling perspective. And then I found Dr. Loafman, who coincidentally is kind of like the crawdad guy in North America. He's named and discovered species of crawdads, but he also has an angling background. And so he knew what we were asking. So that's one of my favorite episodes, because he will tell you, like, we were doing studies and we would go in and, we would do this and the crayfish would move like this and the smallmouth bass in the brush pile wouldn't do anything. And then the crawdad would move like this and they go into straight up hunt mode and they go to kill that thing. And so it was interesting to hear from him. He's like, I'm not lying to you. I've seen this a million times. This is what they do. It's like, okay, that's really cool. Shane O'Gorman is one of my buddies. He's like the best guy for bait fish that I know. So we did the bait fish episode with him. And then I found an entomologist, who, Dr. Entrikin, and she was great just in terms of like learning about mayfly hatches and how the insects, especially for like trout guys, it'd be cool. But even for bass guys, we ignore that segment of the forage base a lot of times. But even if the bass, I guess, is technically not the one eating the bugs, which a lot of times they are, but even if they're not, their bait is eating the bugs. And so you need to follow that path of things. And then reptiles and amphibians and all of those types of things. We did an episode on that too with Dr. Matt Cross around here. So that was a lot of fun. It was a chance. I love the nerdy ones. I was scared that a lot of people wouldn't like it because it's something I wanted to do. And luckily everybody loved it, because I was like, this is either going to be really cool or everyone's going to look at me like I have 5 heads and be like, what is this?
Yeah, absolutely. That has got to be, like I said, as my favorite set of 4 episodes of any podcast I've heard, I think.
Thanks.
Just because that, like I said, that's right up my alley. Like I'm the same with the books that I read. Like my favorite books are like a marine biologist just geeking out about fish, or
Yeah.
or whatever, like a scientist just geeking out about what they study and putting it into book form, maybe like adding a piece of their memoir to it or something. But that
You sound a lot like me, where if I'm going to take the time to read something or consume something, or especially as I've gotten older, I want it to be something of value and not just something to entertain me. Like I've hit that point in my life where if I'm going to sit down and read a book, I don't want it to be a fiction book. I don't want to just do it to pass the time and to be entertained. Like I want to take away and learn something and use that time constructively. And so
yeah,
that's kind of what
absolutely.
I try and do with the show too. I keep it short. It's like 30 minutes. I don't want to do some 5-hour Joe Rogan podcast. You're good about that too, right? You're usually around like an hour. So, but some of these people that do these 2-3 hour, I don't have time to listen to it. I don't expect you to have time to listen to it. But if you want to sit down for like 30 minutes and hear something that hopefully at the end of the 30 minutes will make you a better angler, that's hopefully the goal.
Absolutely. And I do enjoy some of those long form podcasts, but I seldom get to listen to a whole thing before I'm like,
Right.
I gotta put it down for a little bit. But
Yeah.
I always try to go back and at least get parts of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, you've definitely done a good job, especially here lately, of having some absolute legends come on the show and talk about what it is that they do best. Like you said, Rick Clunn with the popper, Ned Cady and the Ned rig.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, where did you learn how to do that? Oh, I'm Ned Cady, like
Right.
the Ned rig guy, Ned.
Yeah.
I learned it
The
from
guy whose name is on the package. Yeah, he told me to do that. It's like, oh, cool.
so uh and you said Bill Dance was like the one that was like your kid in the candy store moment, where it was like
Yeah, that was like weekend mornings growing up, was Bill Dance Outdoors.
yeah,
And then, it's everything, right? He's the reason that I said this before a couple times. I wouldn't have a show. You may not have a show if it wasn't for Bill Dance. Like Bill Dance took fishing media and just went like this with it, just all the way up. There was stuff out before and there were things doing well, but Bill Dance brought it to the masses, which then obviously opens up the industry to become bigger. You have more eyeballs, more non-endemic money coming in, and then the industry grows. I think we would be much, much, much more of a super small niche business, which we still are. But in comparison, I think it would be very different had Bill Dance not kind of like pioneered that intertwining between competitive fishing and the actual fish heads that were out there and your like everyday dude that just likes the outdoors or just wants to tune into some TV that's entertaining, and he did that really well.
And he had the episodes where he had the blooper reels on that it was
Yeah.
like the whole family gets together and watches this because it was so funny. Like, even
Yeah.
if you like my mom, unless it was like sitting on the beach with a book while daddy was fishing, she was not into fishing. She would go with me every now and then down at Grandpa's Creek, but that was about it. Like,
Yeah.
she was not into fishing, but she would sit down and we would watch the Bill Dance blooper reel over a meal or something,
Yeah.
and watch Bill Dance fall out of the boat a bunch of times. But
Well,
um,
think about it. If you've got a camera on you for 50 years, like a lot of people be like, "Oh, those are all fake. There's no way." It's like, actually, if you've got 5 decades of B-roll on you and the camera's always running, it's probably not that hard to put together a 5-10 minute clip of all these funny things that have happened. But I mean, some of those things, like, I mean, they ruined tens of thousands of dollars worth of camera gear on some of these bloopers and rods and reels, and it's like those were not fake. Those are just what happens when you unfortunately film somebody for 50 years
and
straight.
I speak as someone who's notorious and well known for being so clumsy. Like, you put cameras on me for that long,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a really
Oh,
good
you put
blooper
cameras on me for
reel.
3 days, you'd get probably a 10-minute blooper reel. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for me, the Jimmy Houston episode was the kid in the candy store episode for
Yeah.
me, where I was just you could listen and tell how nervous
Yeah.
I was, and it's like part of me wishes that I had waited to contact him until I was more comfortable and better at interviewing. But another part of me is like, if I so at the time that I had him on, it was at the time that I wasn't doing really conversational stuff. I was reading from a script.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't had that script in front of me, I'd have been just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, hey, Jimmy."
Jimmy, hi, Jimmy. Yeah. That's cool. I mean, same thing, right? Jimmy Houston is bass fishing. If you poll Americans that don't know anything about bass fishing, he is one of like the 3 that people will probably recognize and know. Like on your Mount Rushmore of bass anglers that have done what they've done, it's probably like Bill Dance, Jimmy Houston, Roland Martin, Ray Scott. Maybe like there's not very many. Then I would even argue like 90% of Americans are not going to know who Ray Scott is, but people will
Right.
know Bill Dance and Jimmy Houston. Those are your 2 like super recognizable people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's cool. You have that. Aren't you glad you have that memory forever, though? You have
Oh,
something documented where
absolutely.
it is this conversation with an absolute legend. And depending on what you do with that, like I love the idea of trying to ask these people questions and have conversations that I've never heard them have before. Because that's a problem when you've been around for as long as these guys have. It seems like they've been asked everything. And I like, even if you ask the same question or about the same topic, like going at it at a different angle. I love that because then again, it'll live forever. And it's something that nobody else has that experience but you. No one else has heard that side of the story or that angle on it or, that little quip or whatever they gave you except you and that conversation. And not only did you have the conversation, it lives forever. It's documented
Yeah.
forever. It's on the internet, which is really cool. I love that part.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to mute myself so I could cough there. Um, and always happens at such a bad time. But yeah, so I know that especially whenever I am in charge of this, they tend to go a little bit long. So I am going to go ahead and start the "What's Your Favorite" segment early. We've got some new questions that only a couple guests have answered so far. So we are going to jump into that, and we'll do that right after this. Atolus, based out of Charleston, South Carolina, is an eyewear accessory and gear company focused on enhancing your time on the water. Their floating sunglass retainers are the most technically advanced around. Over 5 years of engineering, testing, and exhaustive feedback from paddlers, anglers, and watermen have resulted in a patented design in a class of its own. They're incredibly light and comfortable, built for durability, sport a sleek, minimal design, float virtually all brands and models of sunglasses, and they're backed for life. So if you break them, Atollas will replace them. No questions asked. Whether you're fishing, kayaking, or boating, Atollas will save your shades from the dream. Head on over to atollas.co to check out their gear and use promo code faithnfish15, that's faith the letter N, fish the number 1, 5, at checkout to save 15% on your order. Whether you're a Ned Rig vet or a finesse fishing noob like me, Jade's Jigs is your source for high-quality finesse jigs that raise the bar by being lead-free. Using a tin bismuth alloy not only makes Jade's Jigs eco-friendly, it also makes the jig lighter so you get the same profile with less weight for the fish to feel. Check out jadesjigs.com, that's JADESJIGS.com, to see their full lineup of jigs, styles, and colors. And since you're a Faith and Fishing listener, you can save 10% on your order by using promo code FNF10 at checkout. All right, so to get us started off, what is your favorite character from the Bible?
Oh man, I would go. Oh, it's tough. I got a couple. I would say easy answer is I'm not going to take like Jesus or anything. This is this is too easy. Moses. Yeah, I'll go Moses. That's probably a very cliche answer, but I'm gonna go with it.
Absolutely.
Who have other people's been? I mean, I guess I could say Andrew. That's the reason I have my name. But
David was one, and Luke was one.
Nice.
I'm trying to remember what Robert said his was, but I don't know that he answered that one.
There would be so many good ones in there. Like, again, some of these are going to be obviously a little too popular, but like, can you imagine being like Joseph? Like the amount of faith and the amount of trust and the amount of everything you have to be like in Joseph's shoes in this whole thing, and not someone that really gets talked about too much in terms of like what they had to swallow and say, all right, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to roll with this, and I'm not going to question too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, I get where Joseph is coming from, having to be convinced by an angel. Like,
yeah,
at first he was like, nope.
Then, like, yeah.
I'll be polite about it, but
yeah,
no.
But yeah, I'm gonna see myself out on this one. And the angel's like, hold up a second.
Yeah, for sure. All right, your favorite Bible translation?
Oh, I started reading the New Revised Standard Version, I think is the one that I have now. I tried to read the King James and I couldn't do it. I wanted to do it because I wanted to like read the real thing and not have somebody's little, not spin, right, but their interpretations really built into it. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I made it through like Genesis, Exodus, and I was like halfway through Leviticus. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I got a New Revised Standard Version, and it's so much smoother and so much easier. And then when I started reading too, my grandma actually told me to do this, and it helped a ton. I'm not nearly as far as I want to be, but I want to read from cover to cover, and I've tried to keep up with that. But she told me, she was like, start with the New Testament and read the New Testament and then go back, because if you start with the Old Testament, I don't think you're ever going to make it to the New Testament. You're ever going to read the good part, right? The part that you really, really need to soak in and read. And so I did that. I started with the New Testament and then worked my way through. And I'm not completely through it yet. I started this about a year ago, but I've gotten through majority of it. So that was probably the best advice that she could give me, because I don't think I would have made it all the way to the New Testament.
Absolutely. All right. So, your favorite book of the Bible?
I'd say it's gonna be your 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I mean, that's all 4 of them. I like every time I go back through and read them, because you think you know the story, like you've heard it a million times since you were in Sunday school, and everybody has told you this. But when you go through and you actually read through it again and again and again, you pick up these little things. I need to go back and actually, it's been so long since I've read Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I need to go back again and do it because, like the 2 or 3 times that I've read through them, you pick up something new every time that you completely missed, which is why I like the idea. I wish I was better about it of actually reading it more, but I like the idea of reading, trying to go cover to cover and then go back and through and reading, because the first time through, I'm just so worried about reading everything and trying to absorb everything, which you can't do. It's
Right.
so proverbial. It's so, um, I don't know, like metaphorical and heavy and things like that, where it's like you just can't. You can read it, and yes, it technically went into your brain, but there's no way you're absorbing all of that on the first read. And so I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I want to get through it cover to cover, but I also like going back through and reading the parts that I think are most meaningful to me, because I'm going to pick up something new the 10th time I read through it.
Absolutely. And if you are interested in reading all the way through, something that might help you is a 1 year Bible. So what they do is um, they have a section of they have a New Testament and an Old Testament passage that you read, and it's every day. And at the end of a year, you have read through the entire Bible. So it's not reading cover to cover. But if you are someone who eh, would like to take on that challenge but don't know where to start, or don't know don't know that you can do it in order, that would be something I would highly recommend. It's not a it's not a Bible that you're going to take to Sunday school with you, because if they
Yeah.
say, turn to John chapter 5, you're not going to be able to do that in
Right.
this one.
What
But
day is that? Is that November 12th? Is that November 13th? Where are we at?
um, but if you're wanting to kind of take that challenge on, that would be a really cool way to do it.
They even do, I know it's kinda cheating, but I think they do now, like, speaking of podcasts, I think they do, like, Bible in a year type podcasts where if you wanna sit down and listen every day, you can get through it in a year too. I've never done any of them because I know that I wouldn't be able to devote the time every day to be able to consume that one, but I think that's a cool idea. If you do have whatever it probably is, 45 minutes or an hour each day, if you work and you can listen to things at work or whatever your job may be, that might be a cool option too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, your favorite time of day to fish?
I would say, mm, I mean, right at dawn is awesome. I just hate getting out of bed to get to where I need to be to have that moment. I love that moment when I'm there, but when it's like 4 in the morning and I'm, not wanting to get out of bed, it's tough. And then usually like we fish a lot of remote areas, so it's not like just showing up to the boat ramp and you're good to go. It's like, nope, you're gonna have to probably go through the woods, you're gonna have to go through a whole bunch of stuff or wade to get to the spot you want to get to be able to be there right at that just magic, like sun not above the horizon yet, but you can still kind of see a little bit of fog on the water, that kind of thing. Um, my other time is obviously dusk. Those are your 2 easy ones, but dusk is tough too because it's hard to be where I want to be and still be able to get back to my
Right.
truck, like, safely at that time. So it is, and I think that's why you end up liking them so much, because those couple times that you are there at the right spot at the right time and you do, it stinks, and getting back to the truck when it's pitch black and dragging your kayak and probably losing things and being out in places that you don't wanna be at night is not ideal, but those are the coolest moments. What about you? When's your favorite time to fish?
Um, so I feel the same way about dawn. Like I love it. It's a it's an awesome time to be on the water. But waking up before dawn
Mhm.
um, is something that I used to be a lot better at than I am now. Um,
Yeah.
but I fish a lot of city lakes,
Okay.
and this summer. So there's one just down the road from our house. It's on the kind of engineering campus of North Carolina State University, and it's a paddle only little small lake, and it's just 10 minutes away. So it's been a really good throw and go trip for me, like on a Sunday night or something.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten how awesome sunset fishing was. And man, I have fallen in love with it again. Because you've got everything is starting to go to sleep. All the swallows are getting their last swallow of water before bed, so they're all swooping. And you think that there are fish diving everywhere, but it's just a swallow getting a drink of water off the top of the water mid-flight. The bats are out. It's just really awesome time. Lightning bugs are out, and um, that summertime sunset um, has just been like I've definitely fallen back in love with that. It was something I used to do a lot as a kid with my dad, and this summer I really, because you can't really do a lot of 8-10 hour trips anymore.
Right.
Right now with a toddler in the house,
Yep.
that kind of 2 to 4 hour trip has been awesome, and sunset has really been my time.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think I have a soft spot for in the morning is like you can go fishing in the morning and you can, fish for 4 hours and you have your entire whole day still ahead of you. I love that feeling too, where it's like, one, if you're getting your tail kicked in, you can, go home after 4 hours and you do have a full day. Or if you have a great morning, you've knocked it out and now you still have 8 to 10 hours or whatever to do whatever you want. I love that feeling. We do that a lot of times with musky fishing because musky fishing is miserable a lot of times. So at least if you get your tail kicked in, you can be back to the boat ramp by 11 and you didn't ruin your whole day.
For sure. All right. What is your favorite lure color?
Black.
Black.
I'm going to
So
say
is
black.
that like, is that for anything, or is that just like top water, or?
Most things. Like I have black square bills I love to throw. I have black Ned rigs. I love a dark Ned rig. Like dark or black craws I love. But then yeah, top water is black is my jam too. I love black poppers, black spooks. If you're throwing prop baits, black is great. Um, Little grubs. I throw grubs on like the back of a buzz bait, or I just throw grubs in general on anything. I love black spinner baits. Um, all of that. I think black is one of those colors that doesn't get used a ton because I think it's not like the flashy color like where you go to the store and you're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna grab that one off the shelf. It's black." But I like playing off of fishes. I'm assuming their sense of contrast. So we fish a lot of dirty water around here. I feel confident with contrast where I'm not so much worried about it in dirty water anyway, looking supernatural. I just want them to be able to find it and hunt it easier. And like on a sunny day and stuff, if sun is up here, fish is down here, and the bait is usually somewhere in the middle. Like if the bait is above them, I'm assuming all they're seeing is like a shadow most of the time anyway. And again, that kind of silhouette of the bait. And so a lot of times I like to play off that with black.
Awesome. Absolutely. I tend to be more of a chartreuse guy. But black is another one. I mean, here in central North Carolina, we fish mostly chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Um, our clear lakes are, a foot of visibility would be like I wouldn't know how to fish it because it's too clear.
Yeah, that's most of the year. I'm right there with you. Right now, stuff is clearing up a little bit more, but yeah, most of the time, that's what we're fishing too. So it's the same thing, and that's why, again, chartreuse is really your other option there. And there's a reason that every bait in the world comes in chartreuse because it works. Now, I would love. I don't think I've ever asked any of the biologists we've talked to this show about, but I've heard that bass just see chartreuse as white. They see it as like a more visible, but it's still on that color spectrum of white. So I would love to know if that's actually true or not.
Right. I have heard the same thing. So I just kind of assume that that is the case. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I fish. Everybody who listens to the podcast know I'm a power fisherman through and through. I'm mostly fishing moving baits.
If you're fishing
And
chocolate milk, you kind of have to a lot of times. You don't have a choice.
so
Drop shots don't do well in chocolate milk.
I can't remember the last time I fished a drop shot.
Me either.
But yeah, so let's your favorite pizza topping.
I'm a boring pepperoni guy for sure, but I'll eat anything. Any question you can ask me about food, I am the least picky eater on planet Earth. I love all food. I do not discriminate on any food. The only food on the earth that I won't eat is oysters. That's it.
Okay.
Everything else on planet Earth you can put in front of me and I'll have a good old time chowing down on it. That's it.
Awesome.
The oysters are just, I don't know, whoever opened an oyster was like, yeah, that's something that we want to eat. Like nature's loogie. Disgusting. Anything that you have to douse with hot sauce and vodka and shoot out of a double shooter just to get it down, probably not the most appetizing thing in the world. Sorry.
Have you tried them fried?
Yes, and it's still that just it's fried booger. Like I don't want it. It's gross. Everything else though, I'm game.
Awesome. Oh man, that is hilarious.
Yeah. Ugh.
So is there a particular place near you that is like the pizza place, or like
I'm probably going to get in trouble with Daytonians about this one, but yeah, I would say my favorite around here is called Marion's, and it's like a local place. They've got like 4 shops, I think, around Dayton, but it is this just like, I mean, their large pizzas are not giant, but all of their pizza pieces are cut in these little squares that are like this big. They're like postage stamp sized bites. And so you can eat the whole pizza because you literally just go up one more, up one more, up one more, and then you've eaten an extra large pizza in 25 minutes. And then the best part is you get done and the entire like little cardboard thing the pizza comes in is drenched. It has so much grease on it. It's just chef's kiss. Incredible. Now, you probably can't eat it more than once every couple months or something, or I think you'll probably take some time off your life, I'm assuming, but it's very, very good.
awesome? That is that's awesome. I'm always curious because people tend to be so like they can get fired up about their pizza places.
Oh yeah.
So
And again, never met a piece of pizza that I didn't like. I love all pizza. Give me thick crust, thin crust, stuffed crust, Detroit style. I don't care. I will pound some pizza. Yeah.
awesome. All right, and last but not least, this one you might get judged for, depending on what you
All
what you
right.
pick. But your favorite TV show of all time?
Yeah, I probably am gonna get judged here. What's the best answer I can say that I don't get judged for? There's a couple. Okay. When I was a kid, it was Gumby. I was a giant Gumby kid.
Okay,
When I was little, Gumby came on right after Lassie, so you had to sit through Lassie and her black and white dog stuff to get to Gumby. Um, then I would say like I got around the same time as like Dukes of Hazzard. I loved Dukes of Hazzard. That was just again the growing up redneck Midwestern kid like that is rite of passage. You have to like Dukes of Hazzard. And then yeah, I other than that, like actual TV shows, I don't watch a ton of like I'm not one of those people that can go binge like a Breaking Bad or something like that. I don't have the attention span to dedicate to that. Like I have this fear of like I don't want to dedicate that time. I don't watch movies either. Like we didn't grow up with a movie theater, and so I've probably seen this is going to be ridiculous, but probably like 25 movies in my whole life. Like, I don't watch movies, but I'm a sports guy. So like growing up, it was, you don't watch an episode of some show, you watch Sports Center through for the third time, even though you know exactly what's going to happen because it's the same every hour and it repeats. It doesn't matter. You still watch Sports Center all over and over again. But yeah, I would say growing up for sure, it was like Gumby and Dukes of Hazzard.
Okay, absolutely.
What was yours?
So my
Or is
favorite
yours?
TV show of all time is Frasier.
Okay.
The the really, really witty, sarcastic comedy, like kind of snooty.
Yeah.
The I'm smarter than you and I know it kind of comedy.
Yeah.
That's always been my cup of tea. And
Yeah.
and Frasier was always like it's funny to have a like the main character be someone that you hate to love him, but you do.
Yeah.
Because he's so pretentious sometimes that it's like, oh, I hate this guy, but then at the same time, like you end up loving him too.
Yeah. That's I'm sure if I took the time to watch something like Frasier, or I always figured I would probably like Seinfeld if I would sit down and watch Seinfeld or The Office or something. I'm sure I'd like them all, but I can't do it. I can't commit the amount of time. And I've tried to watch some of these ones that people are all hyped about. Like I tried to watch what's the zombie one? Walking Dead. I tried to watch Walking Dead, couldn't do it. I did like 2 episodes. I was like, nope, turn it off. Next.
Never even tried.
No, can't do it. But yeah, I will also say not the my parents would probably not like to hear this, but I used to love watching South Park growing up too. So that was like every middle school kid. And that was back when South Park, like for all of its vulgarities and all the things that it's not obviously great for, it was great satire where they would actually take things that were going on in the news and they would actually put effort into it and be witty and tie it into some sort of, although ridiculous, still some sort of actual satirical take on something. And now it's obviously just a shell of that. But it used to be, you would sit there and you think like, what are they making fun of? Oh, I know what this is supposed to represent. I got it now. It wasn't so in your face. You had to think about it for a second and then you'd get it. And then the whole episode would make sense. But yeah, that was probably not, sorry, mom and dad. I'm sure they didn't love me watching South Park all the time, but
I hear you, man. Well, we're gonna start wrapping things up. We're at the hour mark now. So, what's coming up next for Andrew Hayes and for Tackle Talk?
you want to know the truth? So you know how you talked about, I don't know if it was before or after we started recording, but you said that you had made, I think it's Wednesdays, your podcast day, where it's like, we're going to record on Wednesdays. Truth be told, like I think I work the best when I have like a immediate deadline coming up. And so most of my episodes, they air Tuesday at midnight and I am recording and editing Monday night. So it's like 4 hours before it has to go out and I'm recording and finishing this thing, which I think is, I've always been like that. Like I wait till the last minute to do everything. So Monday nights are when I record. So I can promise that every Tuesday there will still be Tackle Talk episodes when you wake up. That is something that is not going to stop anytime soon. I've got some ideas I'm trying to do one a year of the big multi-part series things. And the thing with those is tough is they take forever to line up and to get the right people to all happen at the same time. This last one that we did was, you talked about the bait breakdown, or not the bait breakdown, the breaking the mold, the one about the actual lure designers. And so that was like Steve Parks from Rage Tail and Ott Defo and Derek from Beast Coast and Mark Sexton from Berkeley. It's like trying to line all those people up at once to do something that's all within the same time frame is tough. I've got an idea for the next one. I think where we're going with it. It will probably be mid next year, probably before it's actually like done and out. But yeah, I'm going to keep on rocking and rolling with, I like the idea of not having too much of a plan where when you turn it on Tuesday, I don't like tell you what it is ahead of time. So it could be just a gear review of something brand new that came out and I'll give you my unbiased opinion on whether it stinks or whether it's awesome. It could be more on like a specific tactic or something, or you could wake up and it could be a pro angler or something that's on. We just did one with one of my buddies, Kevin Baxter the Bait Man. He's like one of the OG YouTube guys, and he's just, if you look in what does he call it? The bait room? I can't remember what he has. He has a name for his room that's just got all this tackle in it. And it is stuff from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where there are going to be some people that tuned into that probably yesterday and had never heard of some of those lures before. And just, there were some that he mentioned, like the square bill that he likes, I'd never heard before. It was just some random balsa guy that lives in Texas that makes balsa crankbaits. And so I don't know. It's a jackpot, really, when you turn it on Tuesdays. But I think that's what I like about it. But I can basically just promise it's not stopping anytime soon.
Absolutely. And where can everybody find you? Social media, how do they listen to the podcast, all that good stuff?
Yeah, we're everywhere, I think, at this point now. We this past year so we're on all of like Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Amazon, Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts. This past year, for the first time, I had an issue where someone tried to hack our show and steal it. And so it was that was a fun little legal thing for a couple weeks to get figured out. So I always tell people, like, if you, whatever episode or whatever podcast platform you listen to, if there's not an episode on Tuesday, message me on Instagram or Facebook or something, because something's wrong. That's how I found it. It was some like 30-letter name that there's no way I could ever pronounce and have no idea who this person is. And that was the person that it listed as the author of the show now. And they had basically just like taken over the channels. So, but yeah, we're everywhere. We're on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all this. I put some stuff on YouTube every once in a while. I'm trying to get better about archiving the actual conversations with people, not necessarily the ones that are where I'm by myself, but if we do have a guest on, I'm trying to archive those on YouTube, so at least they'll live forever somewhere and folks can go back and look at them a little easier than having to scroll all the way back through podcast stuff. But yeah, wherever you want to listen, we're tackletalkpodcast.com. Fairly easy to find.
Awesome. And want to give you an open floor to give your shout outs, say thank you to sponsors or anybody who supports you that you want to say thank you to. The floor is yours.
Yeah, that's cool. The biggest one and the one that makes the show happen is American Legacy Fishing. They are an awesome, like they have everything you could want, but they're a small kind of Midwestern tackle company. They're out of Southern Indiana, down there. So it's really cool. They're right on the Ohio River, but they are one of those people you can go to. You can get a G Loomis NRX $700 rod if you want. You can go there and you can get a $50 or $100 Dobbins or whatever you want, everything in between. They've got all of the name brands. They have a bunch of baits and everything, but I like it because when you order from them, you get the service that you wish you got from other like bigger box retailers. And so I have some other folks where you'll order and it'll take 6 days before my order ships, and it's coming from a warehouse in California and it takes 5 days to get here. It's like with ALF, I can order it and it's like scary fast on my doorstep, which I like. And if you have questions about what rod you need to pick or what baits or things, you can call them or message them or email them and they get back to you like that. So I like the service side of it, but they're the ones that make the show possible. So I wouldn't have access to some of the gear or some of the things that I'm able to do without them. So they've been great.
Absolutely. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed it again. Sorry, my voice is kind of going in and out.
Sorry, you're feeling crappy here.
But yeah, I mean, it's always those fall allergies that get me, man. Not as bad as it used to be. Being here in the city, growing up, I always lived in a house surrounded on 3 sides by a field.
Yeah.
And they rotated crops, and every other year it was the soybeans. And anytime they cut the soybeans, I was out for at least a week.
Wow. So you were looking forward to those like even years or whatever it was where you're like, yes, corn behind the house this year.
It was not as bad. It was not as bad, but I mean, they still cut soybeans everywhere else. So I still breathed it in somewhere, but yeah, I do. those allergies are just something that you kind of learn to live with. And
Yep.
but yeah, man, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. And we'll definitely have to have you back on soon.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. All right, let's wrap it up. With 30 years of experience of handcrafting lures under his belt, Mr. B of Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality spinnerbaits, buzzbaits, jigs, underspins, swim blades, and more right here in the U.S. All of his skirts are hand-tied, and all of his baits feature a baked-on powder paint, all metal components, and only Owner and Gamakatsu hooks. All of his baits come in a variety of colors, and if you purchase a bait in the Battle Shad color, 30% of the proceeds go to the Wounded Warrior Project. To see the quality for yourself, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, to place your order and use promo code FAITHNFISH, POD 1X10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle in Greensboro, North Carolina offers a wide range of products and services designed to help protect the environment and enhance the time people spend enjoying the outdoors. With an expansive year-round inventory of kayaks, SUPs, bikes, kayak fishing accessories, paddling clothing, biking accessories, and more, Get Outdoors has established itself as one of the top paddle sports and biking shops in the Southeast. They also offer a wide range of kayak safety and technique courses to get you comfortable in your new boat. They'll even get it rigged up for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check them out at shopgetoutdoors.com. Another huge thank you to Andrew for coming back on the show. If you want to check out the Tackle Talk podcast, check out Andrew and follow his adventures. I'll definitely leave links in the show notes. You can check that out. Again, links to Jackson Orr's Catch Tournament will be in the show notes. And go ahead and click that All Things Faith and Fishing link in the show notes as well, because that has all of the sponsor links. That has, the mine and Robert's profiles in Omnia, so you can go see our fishing reports, all that good stuff. So yeah, we don't have Robert to give us his final thoughts this time, and that's been definitely a highlight of the podcast episodes here lately. So we will be looking forward to having him back on this show next week. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless. Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by me, Cam Steele, and is sponsored by Jade's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Savior Outdoors, Atollas, and Mr. B Lure Company. Be sure to give us a rating and a review and to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless.